Hi everyone, welcome to this timeline documentary. Just before you watch it, I want to tell you about my new history channel. It's called History Hits. It's like the Netflix for history. It's got...
The Nazi Party casts a long shadow over the second half of the 20th century. A vision of incomprehensible evil that endures today. But behind this figure was an ordinary man, a master manipulator whose talent for public speaking and deep understanding of how to effectively use propaganda propelled him to ultimate power.
That's pretty ironic considering Hitler admired the British for their skill at propaganda. Propaganda which misled the world to believe that it was Spain which was most genocidal.
The marvelous gift for public psychology which the English have. The English declared that they were fighting for freedom, and not at all for their own freedom. Oh no, but for the freedom of the small nations.
In this documentary, which is British, they say that the US has shame for using Agent Orange, which is hypocritical because Agent Orange was first used by the British. Pity that Brits took Tasmania instead of Spaniards, or Tasmanians would still exist and probably as a majority in their homeland. There are millions of Mayans today. If Spain committed genocide and had half a millennium to do it, they would not exist. That's me in Honduras near the Mayan realm. I love that I was born in Mesoamerica between the most glorious Native American civilizations, the Mayan, the Aztec, and the Incan. There are millions of Nahuatl today. If Spain committed genocide and had half a millennium to do it, they would not exist. These are the Native American languages still spoken in Mexico. If there was a genocide, they wouldn't be spoken at all. Also, just because they speak Spanish doesn't mean that they're not native. A lot of them are still native. Now, zooming out, you see other native languages in the region. There are countless Lencas today. If Spain committed genocide and had half a millennium to do it, they would not exist. I was born in the mountains of the Lencas. I love mountains. Countless Mapuches exist today. If Spain committed genocide and had centuries to do it, they would not exist. There are millions of Guarani today. If Spain committed genocide and had centuries to do it, they would not exist. There are millions of Quechuas today, such as this amazing woman. If Spain committed genocide and had centuries to do it, they would not exist. The green on the right is Portuguese, the brown on the left and the north is Spanish. The other colors are Native American languages, such as Quechua, which I plan to learn, and there's also Aymara. I think Pukina is not used anymore, but I plan to learn it anyway.
Now, you're clearly allowing your prejudices to taint reality. Please stop. You're embarrassing yourself. I easily explained why. There were less North American Indians than Central and South Americans. There was far less of them to start with. Most estimates are only 5% of the pre-Columbian population of the Americas was in what is now the USA and Canada.
A land without a people for a people without a land is a very convenient lie. This guy doesn't even know geography. North America is more than just Canada and the United States of America. Get schooled. Do you see Panama, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, Cuba, Jamaica, México, la República Dominicana, Puerto Rico, que no es independiente pero no importa aquí, Trinidad and Tobago, etc. They're North American countries. So, that guy just said North America is only north of Mexico. That guy doesn't know anything. So, here's another subject. Native Americans came from Asia first into Alaska, so the north was settled first, ergo, had a higher population by default. Logic, people, logic. There was no ice bridge, atheists, with your imagination. That isn't science. It's unfalsifiable, so it's unscientific. Ice Age is nonsense for little kids who believe whatever Hollywood tells them to. They use boats. They need ice. Logic, people, logic. So if his so-called statistic of 5% were not A massive lie. The Trail of Tears would never have happened from plenty of land to share. The Brits wouldn't have even found natives to push away, because there'd be so few, just 5%. That's nothing. So there would be no Trail of Tears. This guy doesn't make any sense. He doesn't apply his standard across the board. If the Spanish reduced what is now the US and Canada to merely 5% native, merely by passing by with smallpox that couldn't even defeat the Aztecs, because the Spanish allied with natives who weren't even infected with smallpox or affected by it, as proven by the fact that they were healthy enough to win a war under Spanish leadership. Anyway, so if the Spanish did that in what is now the US and Canada, reducing natives to merely 5%, then places with a longer Spanish presence, such as Honduras, should have far less natives due to a longer time for the supposed genocide. But that's not so. It's hard to believe you've ever been to a Spanish-speaking part of North America, but it is possible to travel and still be ignorant. How did you know the man was Mayan? You overheard his native language spoken and saw his brown face? Lol. Oh, so you always knew Spaniards didn't genocide his race. Imagine going to Japan and the Japanese accuse the Ainu of genociding the Japanese. That would be utterly absurd because the Japanese are the majority. How could there have been a genocide then? That's how insane you sound when you accuse Spaniards of genocide, or Spaniards a minority in Latin America. In most countries, and when they're not, like in the case of Argentina, that's because of the British doing the genocide with others who were not the Spanish Empire, as I already proved earlier in this series. Czech Mirko said, he quoted me as saying, which my people did by the grace of God, and he's like,
and brought misery and bigotry. You so aptly demonstrated yourself to every single of them. I'm by no means a fan of the contemporary Anglosphere due to its raving leftist nonsenses, says this leftist. But every single of those territories that switched hands and became parts of the Anglosphere had far better deal than those who stayed in Spanish hands. By the way, being a Central European, I also, in contrast to Americans, know about the degeneration of Spain following the influx of the easy riches from the New World, and how Spain squandered it on its bigoted, aggressive policies, in similar manner to contemporary Russia.
Far better deal to be genocided instead of not. You're deluded, anti-Spaniard envious hater. Spain got rid of cannibal bigotry and human sacrificing bigotry, bringing in Catholic heretic bigotry. I never said it was perfect, but good job on that strawman fallacy. The Czech don't have even half the glory of my people. I understand your envy. Correction, not even a quarter. The Brit says that superior technology makes them superior. But the truth is that superior morality is superior to superior technology. Mind over matter, spirit over materialism. Being on the cutting edge of technology never lasts. Guilt, however, is eternal. The greatest glory of the British people, scientific knowledge and technological power, was harnessed for their greatest shame, genocides. They turned their greatest triumph into their greatest defeat, the accumulation of guilt beyond Nazis, which will be manifest on Judgment Day, as I proved in my series Crushing Atheist Myths, which I did a Spanish version of also. The biggest surprise for me, without a doubt, says this black man, was that the first black people who came to the United States weren't the 20 who arrived in Jamestown in 1619. All of us had been taught that. Well, guess what? The first African came to Florida in 1513. And a huge shock is we know his name, Juan Garrido, and that he wasn't a slave, he was free. This brother from another mother was a conquistador who came with Ponce de Leon. He was looking for the fountain of youth just like the white people were. The Spanish Empire wasn't racist. Now you can say that, oh, the Spaniard is on a high horse and the black man has to walk, so he's inferior to the Spanish. But look at the Spaniard on the right, the far right, he's also on foot. This black man had a higher status than most Spaniards. He was a conquistador. He was filthy, stinking rich. In 1538, Garrido gave testimony on his years of service as a conquistador. I, Juan Garrido, black in color, resident of this city, appear before your mercy and state that I am in need of providing evidence to the perpetuity of the king, a report on how I served your majesty in the conquest and pacification of this new Spain, from the time when the Marqués del Valle, Hernán Cortés, entered it, and in his company I was present at all the invasions and conquests and pacifications which were carried out, etc. Oh, and the source is bigredhair.com, which sounds nonsensical, but the thing is they're artists who did a very top-notch comic on the Spanish Empire, although they have some anti-Spanish bias. And they have a bibliography of legit sources, so it's not just bigredhair.com, that's my source. They quote they have the sources in their website. The Spanish caste system was about proximity to the crown in Spain, and wealth as well as office, not race, which merely tended to correlate. The native-born are more likely to be loyal to the crown of their country. The traitor Simón Bolívar, after whom Bolivia is named, unfortunately, proved that the Spanish caste system was right to discriminate, since the Spaniard born in America was less loyal than those born in Spain. And I say this as a Spaniard born in America. The Inquisition by Catholic heretic Mary worshippers was also not racist, since it did not kill due to race, but due to practicing a forbidden religion, which merely correlated to race in the case of Jews or Moors who retained Islam. Now, eventually, there was an expulsion of Moors. I think even if they weren't, even if they claimed to be Catholic, because they couldn't be trusted. The Turks were advancing in Africa towards Spain, which meant that the people who were Muslim in Spain, who claimed to be Catholic, they were a liability. So the Spanish didn't want them around because they would have rebelled against Spain while the Turks attacked. When the enemy attacks you from within and without, you're doomed. Spain wanted to ensure that the Reconquista would not be undone, so they kicked out the Moors and some of the nominal Jews. Well, they were nominal Jews. They were real Jews. It's the Ashkenazim who are not real Jews. I think Sephardim are real Jews, but I'm not sure. They look way more like real Jews than the other ones, because real Jews are from Abraham. Abraham was Sumerian, from Ur, and Sumerians look more like Saddam Hussein than like Hitler. Yes, every video in this series mentions Hitler.